The Dallas Cowboys hosting the Seattle Seahawks Saturday night, prime time. Got to put the Cowboys on in prime time.
Yeah, of course.
It's a rematch that I almost don't even remember. They played earlier in the year. It feels like ages ago.
Yeah.
Because early in the year, both teams were, Dallas looked like their season was going nowhere. Seattle was a team that didn't necessarily have their identity yet, and, all these new players, and what are they going to do with this run-heavy attack? So I don't even put much stock into the last matchup. But both of these teams playing pretty well. And Dallas's defense has been really good at home, and I think that's, that matchup, Dallas's defense against Seattle's offense.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas, period, have been very good at home. They're 7-1 at home this season out of 10 wins. So that's the thing that the Seahawks have to overcome here, is the fact that this Dallas team has been pretty peerless at home. And Seattle, actually not as big a disparity as you would think for the Seahawks. They typically have the most dominant home field advantage in the league. They're 6-2, but they're 4-4 on the road. So they're a 500 team on the road, which isn't dramatically worse than their overall record anyway. So I think they can show up and take a game to Dallas. But the question is it enough? Because this Dallas team at home has just been so dominant, particularly that defense, which is, it's been the thing that's carried this team's charge, but it's got that thing that all really good defenses have, where they've got at least one really dominant player at every level.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Up front, you've got DeMarcus Lawrence repeating his season from a year ago. Not quite as dominant, but still, a primary pass rusher, an absolute ton of pressure. In the middle, they've got two of them. They got Jalen Smith and rookie Leighton Vander Esch. Those two have combined to be this incredible force. Dominant when it comes to flying to the football. Dominant at getting defensive stops. So they're not just getting to the ball, they're getting to the ball close to the line of scrimmage and stopping the offense for getting any kind of significant game. And then on the back end, you've got Byron Jones, who's this crazy story this year of a guy who wasn't even a cornerback a year ago. He was, drafted as this athletic freak safety type guy, or a guy that the team projected to a safety. He became this sort of tight end eraser, jack of all trades.
Loved watching him cover tight ends.
This year, as they've pivoted to this kind of cover 3, cover 1 system, they valued cornerback length and that kind of profile more on the outside. So they moved him back to cornerback, where he's been spectacular.
Yep, he has. And I love the Dallas defense and what they're able to do. And I think we remember the high end games. They shut down the New Orleans Saints. They did it on primetime. Everybody is remembering that. So that's why you're looking at this game and you're like, all right, they've got a shot against Seattle. I think the interesting thing about this one with Seattle's offense is, despite having Russell Wilson, who's a consistent top 5, 6, 8 quarterback year in, year out, they went super run heavy this year. The highest percentage of runs on first down, highest percentage of runs on second down. In theory, it sounds like a terrible strategy. I'm not saying that it's been proven correct, but there are some games where it's worked for them. They had a Detroit game where they ran the ball something like 45 times and threw the ball 17 times. There is this perfect game flow where they run the ball a million times and only pass the ball off play action, and it works. It's a little risky because you're putting the ball into your running back's hands so much, but they're number 3 in the NFL. They're all their running backs yards after contact. The offensive line has improved. So they've gone run heavy despite having an elite quarterback who, when they're in a hole or whatever, you could bail them out. But even though they should probably put the ball in Wilson's hands more, it's worked so far this year.
It has. I just want to make one more point about Byron Jones, because Byron Jones has no interceptions this year, which
he's still grading
people will look at and say, well, how can he be a good cornerback then? Because interceptions are everything.
I noticed that yesterday when we put him on our All-Pro team, and you like to just show all the good. He's got this many interceptions and pass breakups. It's nice to show, but the fact that he's grading that well without them.
Yeah, and the point is his role within that defense is a ton of press man coverage, right? Which means he's up in the receiver's grill. He's turning away from the quarterback to match the receiver most of the time.
Right.
Those guys just don't get interceptions. They don't get a lot of them because they're not looking at the ball.
That's what made Darrelle Revis so special.
Right. They're looking at the receiver. They're tracking the guy they're trying to cover. They're not really worrying about the ball until the last minute when it arrives, and then they're just trying to break it up more than they are pick it off. So the fact that he has 0 interceptions is not a massive deal. He has 9 pass breakups, which is 4 more than anybody else in that secondary. His numbers have been pretty impressive, just a little bit over 50% in terms of completion percentage allowed. So don't be swayed by the fact that he doesn't have any interceptions, because the way he plays the game within that defense is not designed to generate those interceptions, and he shouldn't be punished for that, essentially.
What you described is what generally happens with man coverage corners. They allow a lower completion percentage. They don't pick off as many passes.
Right.
If you're a zone player, you give up more yards, you probably pick off more passes. So there's some boom or bust there. So Byron Jones, when Tyler Lockett's on the outside, Tyler Lockett having one of the most efficient statistical seasons we've ever seen for a receiver. A perfect passer rating when Russell Wilson targeted him this year, 158.3. And then the return of Doug Baldwin over the last few weeks. I mean, so that was my preseason analysis on this. Is you have a banged up Doug Baldwin, you've got Tyler Lockett and a bunch of no names at receiver, and you have an offensive coordinator who promises to run the ball down your throat. This looked like a formula for just disaster for the Seattle offense, but Wilson's played really well outside of a couple games and really a couple throws, and Tyler Lockett stepped up and been exceptional. And then, you've got David Moore, making big plays. Did I just forget his first name?
No, David Moore, right?
Oh my God, I screwed up for a second.
It's okay. Let me just check. You
look for it.
Let me check we're both right.
But Moore's made a bunch of plays down the field, and then Doug Baldwin comes back, and he's great.
It's David Moore. You nailed it.
My fault. But he was Moore stepped up, made a ton of big plays down the field this year. And then with Baldwin back, you move him. He's in the slot quite a bit. Now they've got some tough matchups with these little receivers.
Yeah, I mean, it was
more.
It was Mike Renner, right, that made the point that the Seahawks offense, the way they've approached receiver, I think is the template for the future, right? Yep. There was a time in the NFL where everybody was looking for these 6'3", 220-pound monster wide receivers who could just go up and make all the plays. I think now we're starting to understand that actually the guys you want to be finding are the guys that just get open. And, maybe they won't win a jump ball 40 yards down the field all the time. But if they're open, it doesn't matter. So
sometimes simple. You go back to the simplicity. Separation is king. Getting open is king.
So you've got Tyler Lockett, right, who is smaller than me. Tyler Lockett is 5'10", 182. Now, okay, he's got me by a few pounds, but I've got an inch in height over him, so we're good, right?
He's got you
basically my size.
Skill. Sorry.
Basically my size, right? That is not the typical NFL wide receiver profile. And you would expect that he can't, go up and make all these plays. But he's open so much of the time that he doesn't need to go and win a jump ball against a 6'2" cornerback, because he's beaten him for 2 yards of separation off the line of scrimmage. So the Seahawks have got Tyler Lockett. You've got Doug Baldwin, who has one of the two best releases off the line in the NFL. I would say Adam Thielen has the other one. Those two guys win right away. So consequently, they're wide open for Russell Wilson regularly. And I think it really is setting the template. It's what we said with that Panthers offense for years, is that it's taken them 3-4 years to figure out that if we just get a guy that gets open, it's actually better than if we just get huge people or guys with giant catch radiuses or whatever.
It sounds so simple, but because we chart open throws versus tight window throws, Russell Wilson, number 4 passer rating in the NFL on open throws at 125. And PFF grades right up there as well. He's number 5 on open throws. So it sounds simple, just get open, but Tyler Lockett does it, Doug Baldwin does it, David Moore's done it. So they've done a pretty good job with the Seattle passing attack.
The other thing is these guys that excel through being shifty and quick and winning at the line, if there is a weakness of those longer, stronger, physical cornerbacks like Byron Jones, it's dealing with people like that. Like the Richard Sherman and Brandon Browner back in the original Legion of Boom days.
Right.
They struggled the most going up against smaller, shiftier receivers. Like those are the guys that gave them the biggest problems. So that'll be a fascinating matchup to watch, is how Byron Jones does against those guys if he can't get hands on them immediately at the line, if he's going to be struggling for living with them in terms of quickness.
So the Seattle passing attack against this Dallas back 7 plus DeMarcus Lawrence rushing the passer, big matchup. The Seattle run game, as much as we like to dismiss run games because they're so dedicated to it, Chris Carson is running extremely well. He's graded well for us because the offensive line has been okay, not great. He's creating a ton of yards after contact. He's running really hard every time. It does feel like every guy they put up there in Seattle is just running hard. They just run with some tenacity. So I'm going to love watching them against Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch, who you said they fly around the field. They make a ton of plays. Leighton Vander Esch, top 5 in the NFL on defensive stops. Jalen Smith has that burst back. So as much as we like to talk about the passing game, I'm going to be watching the run game and watching these linebackers fill in against these Seattle running backs.
These two teams are placed next to each other in terms of overall PFF grade. Graded as a team. So 87.0 for the Seahawks and 86.9 for the
pretty close. What are those ranks?
For Dallas.
8th and 9th.
They're actually they're middle of the pack.
Okay,
strangely,
a little bit lower.
They're neck and neck, right? They're separated by 0.1 of a grading point.
All right, let's go to the other side of the ball. You've got Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. You've got Zeke Elliott, Amari Cooper. It looks like the Cowboys might have their triplets back. They love having triplets at all times. That's what they do. That's how they build it in Dallas. You got to have the triplets against the Seattle defense, which has played some really good games at home, and then they've been a little touch and go on the road. They're more the Seattle's team has always been interesting for a few years because they're more likely. Like Russell Wilson's great at home, but they're more likely to play a defensive struggle at home, I think. And then on the road, they get into these shootout situations. Not all the time, but you see that a little bit.
Yeah, I think
not like in the playoffs when they won 10-9 against Minnesota, but
yeah, no, I think that's true. Particularly, you go on the road to Dallas in a dome, so it's not like they're going to be dealing with adverse conditions that's going to slow them down. They're a fascinating team because they are capable of doing both, right? They're capable of being this run-first offense that just grinds teams down, but they're also capable of abandoning that entirely, putting the ball on Russell Wilson's hands and letting him make crazy things happen.
Right.
A bit like Deshaun Watson. He's well capable of doing that. It's going to be a case of how successful that is going up against this Dallas defense, though.
I think we're going to learn early. So there's two things to look at. Going back to the Seattle offense, because you mentioned Russell Wilson, but we've talked about the games where he's pressured over 40-45% of the time. Disastrous things happen, as well as Russell Wilson plays under pressure.
Yeah.
Disastrous things happen. Also, Russell Wilson, you could usually tell early if he has it or not. And we were just talking about this in the office the other day about the volatility of quarterbacks at a game level. Russell Wilson has 3 or 4 games a year where he's just really not that good. And then 3 or 4 games where you're like, this is the best quarterback in the NFL. Top 1, top 2 quarterback in the NFL. You might be able to tell early if Russell Wilson's on or not. But if Dallas makes him feel uncomfortable early, I think Seattle could be in trouble. Sorry, go back into the Dallas offense. Dak Prescott has not played great. He's had some. He was really good last Sunday against the Giants. That's a whole different animal. Why was he playing? That whole discussion. But overall, he's the guy that's kind of put up some better stats than the grades would show over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I'm kind of fascinated. So we talked about Nuke Hopkins having this one freaky statistic, the drop rate. His probably got the best hands in the league because he just doesn't drop passes anymore. Bobby Wagner is the defensive equivalent. Bobby Wagner doesn't miss tackles.
Yeah, it's really
almost
incredible.
Ever. So he has 4 missed tackles over the past 2 seasons. Now
that's a game for some linebackers.
It is a game for some linebackers, and it's a good number in and of itself for a season. Like if a linebacker missed 4 tackles on the season, it would be a pretty good year. But it's even better than that because the 3 missed tackles that he missed a year ago all came in the final couple of weeks of the season where he was playing through a busted shoulder. So he went basically the entire year without missing a tackle, then was forced to play hurt for a couple of weeks and missed 3, I think, in the final 3 games with an injured shoulder. Then this year, he didn't miss a single tackle until week 16 against the Chiefs.
It's crazy.
So basically, you're talking about a guy who has 1 missed tackle while playing healthy over 2 years, which is a completely absurd number.
He's our highest graded linebacker. Number 1 in coverage, number 2 against the run.
Both the Dallas linebackers, who have played fantastically, I think are in double digits for missed tackles.
Yeah.
And they're not, so Luke Kuechly is at 9. Luke Kuechly is
and he's one of the best tacklers in the NFL.
Jalen Smith is at 12. Vander Esch is at 13. So most linebackers are into double digits. Wagner's missed 1.
Wagner earned first team All-Pro for us at PFF. Only 1 missed tackle on 138 attempts this year. As I mentioned, number 1 in coverage, number 2 run defense, also has 7 pass breakups, has not allowed a touchdown in coverage either.
Joe Schobert, who graded well, missed 24 tackles this season.
24?
Yeah.
Love Joe. Got to cut down on those. Cut down on a few of those. Think where the grade goes. Let's discuss Amari Cooper really quick because, he was written off pretty much in Oakland. I think people laughed at this trade, right?
Yeah.
They laughed at the Amari Cooper trade.
They laughed at the first round pick, right?
Yeah.
I
don't think that was crazy because I know you have to pay him, so you're paying a first rounder, but he's still a first round caliber wide receiver.
Well, now, apparently. But I don't know that I think the point was I don't know that you could have guaranteed that from at the point they traded him, right? It's not like Derek Carr has had his struggles, but it's not like he's a disaster at quarterback. You're not looking at this guy and saying he's 100% held back by the fact that he has no quarterback throwing him the ball. Like
a first round is rich because you're assuming he's going to be in the open market soon.
Right. Yeah.
Either way, is this a number one wide receiver since coming over?
Yes.
Well, I'm going to read some numbers to you, and
okay.
you can say yes.
Fine. Okay.
He's 10th in targets with 72. He's averaged 2.15 yards per route. That's an excellent number. He's had a passer rating of 121.5 when targeted and a PFF grade of 82.5. Now, is that a number one wide receiver?
Yes, it is, Steve.
So they've got a number one wide receiver, and they've got Zeke Elliott in the backfield. So as much as we talk about the past games, and Cooper's going to be a key here, and he needs to get open for Dak. He's top 10 in the NFL. I just tweeted it yesterday. Top 10 in the NFL in targets when open against single coverage. You got all those parameters?
Yeah.
Because we track, is it single coverage? Is it hole in zone? I think this is a telling stat because it's all your best route runners at the top. It's Adam Thielen, it's Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams. Cooper's at the top, so he can beat man coverage. But now you've got two teams that want to run the ball. Dallas wants to run the ball with Zeke. Seattle wants to run the ball. So maybe it's not going to be a shootout. Maybe that's actually going to condense the game a little bit.
Yeah, the yards per route run stat, I think, is a key one for Cooper. There's 15 guys in the league this year are over 2. So anything over 2 is a very good number. The league leader is Julio Jones, which is usually the case at 2.9. But the second guy, the second guy is Michael Thomas at 2.66. So, Cooper's right up there amongst the very elite guys. And these top guys are exactly who you would think they would be. It's Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, T.Y. Hilton, Tyreek Hill, Nuke Hopkins, Keenan Allen. It's the cream of the wide receiver group up there in terms of production. So Cooper has been up with that group since he moved over to Dallas.
All right, so I love the matchup overall. Dallas has the weapons, I think, now, or a weapon, to maybe get into the shootout situation if they need to. But I'm taking Seattle because even though both teams, I think there's going to be a feel-out process. They're all going to try to establish the run. At some point, they unleash the quarterbacks. We get into more of a shootout situation, and I like Russell. I'm taking both road teams here on Saturday. That's crazy. I like Russell Wilson in the shootout situation. He's got the highest percentage of big-time throws in the NFL this week. I think that's what he does. Big time throws.
I'm going to go with Dallas because they're at home, and therefore that will win them the game. But do you want to know something that could be a pretty significant momentum swing within the game?
What's that?
Fumbles, right? Zeke Elliott has 6 fumbles on his carries this season, which is double any other running back in the NFL. Dak Prescott has 4 fumbles rushing this season, which is...
He's got way more just in the pocket, though.
Right. Plus... We've charged him for the most sacks of anybody, which leads to strip sacks, which leads to fumbles in the passing game. So this is a team that will put the ball on the ground a lot. Just those two, just on running plays. 10 fumbles. You know how many they've lost?
I don't know. That's luck, though.
Right.
3?
2.
2. Yeah, that's
so
luck.
At the moment, they've only lost 20% of the balls they put on the ground. If that swings back to the Seahawks within this game, that could be huge.
Let me add to it because I'm looking at Dak's passing numbers. He has a 74.6 overall PFF grade. Okay, where does that rank overall? 74.6 is only 19th in the NFL. Right behind Marcus Mariota, right ahead of Nick Foles and Derek Carr. The Carr family going to tweet me about that one too. So he's 19th. Is that what I said?
Sure.
If you sort by fumble grade, which essentially says, look, if you get strip sack in the motion and it's really on the blocking, we're not really going to dock you for that. But when you have a bad ball security and you're trying to scramble and you fumble and you see a guy's coming after you and you still try to get rid of it and you fumble and it's a really bad decision, we're going to give you a really bad grade. So the fumble grade sorts through that. Third worst fumble grade in the NFL is Dak Prescott, 28.8. So again, if you guys have PFF Elite, if you guys are using PFF numbers, and you say, well, Dak has a 96.9 passer rating. That's very good. It's well above average. Why is his grade only a 74.6? Sometimes you go to the fumble grade, and you're like, all right, that's tying it together. So the worst fumble grade in the NFL is Cody Kessler. Then Lamar Jackson, who we'll talk about in a minute. Then Dak Prescott, 28.8, so something to keep an eye on.
Right. So I'm just saying there's not an insignificant chance that the Dallas Cowboys put the ball on the ground, and so far they've been really lucky when that's happened.
Yeah, Dak, the sack thing has been huge too.
Right.
He's been doing the spin out move where he's losing yardage and stuff, so keep an eye on Dak and his pocket presence.